Oh,
A long time.
a couple months. We've moved the desk around, it looks
I
like.
know. Yep. Yeah, we got a new setup which called for a new desk setup.
This might have been the toughest list for me.
Yeah. It was the easiest to come up with like possible selections, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was so hard to narrow down.
Yeah. Like I had a list of 10 really quick, all of whom I'm like,
Yeah.
like they could be on this list. And it like I kind of only had two that I was like, no, I really want these guys on there.
Yeah.
So
My top three was pretty locked in,
yeah.
but then I have 13 names down total, and 4 through 13 was like tough.
Did you go best or favorite? Like a combination of
Um, Sort of a combination. My favorite are generally
good.
like who I think is good
Mhm.
in various ways.
So it didn't have to do with liking like the actor themselves. Like,
Not really, no.
okay.
No, not much. I don't
Yeah.
think. I mean, I'm sure there's probably some
Hmm.
bias in there, but I didn't think too hard about like, are they a good person? I mean, hopefully they're like decent, but
Right. But like enjoyable.
um, yeah, it wasn't like I want to hang out with this person
Right, right, right.
on the weekends. Otherwise, yeah, that would be a very different list.
It's I'm even just sitting here now. I'm
Do
like,
you
dude,
think we're gonna have any of the same?
I think it's possible, but I feel like largely it will be different.
I think there's one that we might both have. Like that I just off the top of my head, I'm like we might both have that. I think there could be others, obviously, but
Hmm.
I also I wouldn't be surprised if we have 10 different names said.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I
Okay.
Man, yeah.
Should we just rip the Band-Aid off and go for it?
I guess. Do we?
And
So
if we
since we'll
forget
probably have
some, we forget some.
since we will probably have differences, do we want to just go one through five instead of doing names? Like since we'll probably be largely different, do we want to just do it that way for change, or do you want to go
Yeah,
in?
we could try it. If we have someone the same, then maybe let's go number one first, just
That's
so
what I'm saying.
that it
That's what I'm
doesn't
saying.
get revealed. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying one
One,
to
two,
five,
three,
and then if
five.
we have
Yeah.
an overlap, we can just
Okay.
kind of put in a little bit.
We'll just throw it in. Yeah, that works. That
I
works for
think
me.
so. My number one is easy. This has not even
Okay.
been in question for a while. Also, shout out to the dog not making an appearance.
Okay, she
Did
didn't
not
want to
really.
leave the room. Let me go let her
Yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah, you're good.
I knew that was gonna happen
Yeah,
because
it's
she'll
funny.
happily sit on the bed, but if I close the door, it's like a ticking. We're on the clock until she's
Yeah,
gonna be like, "Yeah, I don't want to be in here."
yeah. I didn't see her at all, and all of a sudden I see more. I'm like, is that what is going on? And she sticks her head around. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Actual start of the episode.
Yep. Here we
Top
go.
actors at number one. Easiest decision for me. I have Christian Bale.
That's the
Um,
one I thought I have him at number two.
okay, so
I put him down like, yeah, that's gonna be on both. I
yeah,
knew just because of the Nolan stuff.
right. So there's so many things. So the way I love Christopher Nolan movies, obviously Bale's in a bunch of them. Three of my top four movies, he's a main character in: The Two Dark Knights and Ford versus Ferrari.
Hmm.
Um, so he's played some of my favorite characters, been a part of my favorite movies, and I just think he's incredibly talented. The the way he just commits to roles, like I feel like you've probably seen. There's the pictures of his insane body transformations, where he's
Hmm.
going from a jacked Batman to a guy that's way overweight to a guy that has an eating disorder or something like insanely thin. Which I mean, it's just not a healthy thing to do, but he's so good at his job. Like his performances are so impressive. So for me, it just when I think of the best favorite actor to watch, he's just up there. And I think like those big ones in my top 10, but it also his performance in The Prestige, which is another movie that I just love.
Hmm.
So good.
Yeah.
And watching him play, one person, but kind of multiple. This was an easy decision for me. He's the best. He's my number one, has been for a while at this point.
Yeah, I have him at two just because I feel strongly about my one, and I'd like to have one and stick to that's my guy.
I like that.
So I decided on that a few years ago, and I've stuck with it. Um, One of the big things for me with actors is when I'm watching the movie, am I watching and I'm like, okay, that is, whoever the character they're playing is, or am I watching, I'm like, okay, that's Christian Bale playing, whoever it is.
Mhm.
And then he's done so many different things, and he's really, really good at all of them. And
Mhm.
at no point are you like, oh yeah, that's an actor doing that. You're just like watching the movie. He brings you in with
Mhm.
his performance.
Mhm.
So obviously you have him one, I have him two. I'm not gonna argue about that at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's in some of our favorite movies collectively. If we throw it back to the top 10 movies, I think we've got like 5 or 6
Oh yeah.
Christian Bale ones in there between us. So obviously a great pick.
Gotta have him.
And speaking, since we're already on the Christian Bale, Christopher Nolan. Do you have your tickets for Oppenheimer yet?
I do. I can't go this weekend. I'm going
Uh-oh.
next weekend on Saturday. It's all booked out.
Oh
I'm ready
no.
to go.
I'm doing the double feature tomorrow, I think.
Okay. Okay.
Little at morning Barbie and then Oppenheimer and IMAX at 7 p.m. in the Jordan's furniture.
Oppenheimer and IMAX is
It could be a bad choice, but we'll see.
no,
Well,
it's
just
gonna be.
like it's gonna be,
Oh yeah, it's
people have
my
said it's like depressing, and I'm going to see it in like the most immersive experience I'll ever have.
yeah.
Like, we'll
It's gonna be a
see.
good movie.
Well, hopefully, my expectations are for it to be like a Dunkirk level movie because you can't do too much. You can't do like the mind
Right.
bending
Right.
Christopher Nolan stuff with the story. So
Sure.
um, that's kind of where I'm setting the expectations at, and we'll see if it meets, exceeds, doesn't meet, whatever.
Yeah.
All
So
right,
who's your one?
my number one is Hugh Jackman, and so
Ooh.
this is where
Ooh.
that really comes into play because I've seen him in all the X-Men's that he was in, which I think is like crazy at this point. I think he's getting double digits. Um, then obviously The Prestige. Then I've seen him in Greatest Showman, which I think is one of the greatest movie soundtracks,
Mhm.
and I've seen him in Prisoners. And then those are just the ones off the top of my head, but those are all significantly different characters that he's playing, and I
Mhm.
think he does so well in all of them. And he was kind of the one that made me realize that I really liked that about actors because I had watched I'd known him as Wolverine even before I had kind of watched all the X-Men movies. But then
Mhm.
I watched The Prestige and I was just like watching it and I realized after like, wow, that I totally forgot that was Hugh Jackman, like the same guy that plays Wolverine in that
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
Um, he's also super, super talented. Um, I believe he is close to, if not already has, an EGOT, which do you know what that is?
No.
So an EGOT is means someone's won an Emmy, an Oscar, the Grammy, and the Tony. Um,
Mm.
so he's got an Emmy, a Grammy, a Tony. He's just missing the Oscar
Wow.
win. He has been nominated for an Oscar, has not won yet. But yeah, that's apparently like I don't know if that's a thing that actors themselves care about, but it's like a pretty big deal when someone gets all four
Right. Shows the
in
recognition.
when people are viewing. For the viewers, it's a big deal, I think. Um,
Yeah.
but like he's a great singer. Obviously can do a wide variety of roles: TV, Broadway, movies, different kinds of movies, different kinds of characters. um, so and he's also part of one of my favorite videos on the internet, Greatest Showman. There's this clip of him where they're pitching the movie to the studio, and so they go in and they basically say like kind of run through a dry run of the plot almost.
Mhm.
But they have to sing, and he had like a cancer on his nose that had to get removed.
Mhm.
So he had his nose was all stitched up, and he wasn't allowed. They're like, you can't do anything like that exerts your face really, so like you
Mhm.
can't sing. So they had a guy standing in for him. But then my favorite song from the movie, they're going through it, and he was so moved by the song that he just starts belting out into the song, and the whole place is just going nuts. And so I'll just
That's
watch that
crazy.
from time to time, and it gives me chills every time. So yeah, Hugh Jackman, number one. And like I said,
Right.
it's been like that for a few years, and I don't really see that changing because I like to just kind of like stick with it like that.
Yes, you do. This is
Yep.
true. So, hey, that's a good pick. That's a great pick. I didn't know that,
hmm
but
I
hard
also
not
feel
to
like it's
love.
kind of like it's not that I don't go out of my way to do it, but I like when my top picks or whatever are kind of like not ones that you would go up on like someone on the street and probably not one of their like first five or whatever.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we've given up my two already. So who's your number two?
All right. My number two is John Krasinski.
Okay. Definitely
So
considered him.
yeah, so he's really on mine largely for two roles that he's done. Um, obviously, like The Office, it's one
hmm
of my favorite shows, and I don't think it's a show that most people are going to be like, wow, the acting is so incredible necessarily, but there's just something about the character of Jim Halpert that's just so iconic, and he's just like his portrayal of this guy is just the person that so many people watching are just like, I just want to be like Jim. Like he's just the cool, he's the fun, he's funny. Um, but then his performance in A Quiet Place as
Mm,
well,
okay.
which is a movie like the type of movie that I wouldn't expect to love, but it's one of the most moving movies that I've like ever seen. Just the incredible weight of family, and I think just the way him as a father, loving his kids, loving his wife, protecting them, the way that's shown in that movie is just incredible. And so, and it's so different, kind of like you said about Hugh Jackman. Like when you're watching A Quiet Place, there's never a point where I'm like, oh, that's Jim from The Office. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
as iconic as Jim is, it like he's able to do such different things. And he's really, I'm forgetting the name, but the crime show, the detective show he's on, Jack
Jack
Ryan.
Ryan.
Jack
Yeah.
Ryan.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say that's a good one.
I think he's really good in that as well, which is sort of that's a different role from those two. So those sort of parameters that you gave out, where you're watching, it's different roles, and you're not thinking like, oh, this is John Krasinski doing this, John Krasinski doing that. But it's just in A Quiet Place. Like I just love John Krasinski. He's probably one of the guys on it. Is just he just seems like such a just a fun guy to listen to watch in interviews or anything. And I think the
Hmm.
way he performs is just incredible. So I have him at 2. I was going back and forth on where to place him, but I'm pretty happy with him being number 2. And he's another one. He's been up there for a while for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I definitely considered him. I like him. I think he's good, really good in Jack Ryan. I would agree with that. Quiet Place is one of those movies I haven't gotten around to seeing because I feel like certainly outside my comfort zone, and it's like a right place, right time kind of thing. Or if I were to watch it, because I have a feeling it would stick with me for a few days and I would have trouble sleeping.
I'll be honest, I didn't sleep great the night I saw it, but I loved it. And you know, I hate horror movies.
Hmm.
It's more of a thriller, but it's definitely not just like a casual throw on just because you're chilling watching a movie. Like you got to be ready for it.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
it's a really good movie.
Yeah, and I think there's also something to be said for Krasinski about like if you watch the tapes of other people auditioning for Jim, and it's like it's good actors, people who have
Hmm.
done
Hmm.
really, really good stuff. They're just not really able to kind of nail it like
Right.
like he does.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, pretty good pick.
Yeah.
My number three is pretty similar. Um, Overall, this would be my number four, but for male, this is my number three. I
Hmm.
have Steve Carell, and he
Oh,
he was
okay.
a late addition to this, like just a couple of days ago when we were like, okay, we're actually going to record this thing. I was
Yeah.
going through and looking and be like, okay, am I okay with this list?
Yeah.
And I realized I don't have Steve Carell on this list. I'd
Mm.
also just watched some of The Office, but he's mostly on here because I think he's so great as a comedic actor.
Yeah.
Just everything that he's in that I've
Hmm.
watched, I think he's so funny. Obviously, he carries
Hmm.
The Office for a lot of it. It's not the same without him.
Hmm.
Whether people think that it's worse, better, whatever, it's not the same. You can feel his absence when he leaves. Um, then 40-Year-Old Virgin is hilarious. He's so funny in that. Dinner for Schmucks, I think he's really funny. Not really a good movie, but I think he's really funny. And then I
Yeah.
just watched Date Night with Tina Fey and him, and that's super funny. And then the reason I actually really remembered him was because I watched a clip of Crazy Stupid Love that he's in, and he is so funny
That's such a good
in
movie.
that movie. And I'm just like, man, he's just always funny. Whether or not it's a good movie, a good show, whatever, he's always so funny. He has such great comedic timing and comedic delivery. And
Hmm.
then also clips of him being like a dramatic actor. He's really good just
Hmm.
as an actor as well.
Hmm.
I also loved him in Asteroid City. I thought he was so funny.
Never
Um,
seen that one.
it's new Wes Anderson that just came out a
Okay.
few weeks ago.
Okay.
Really liked that one. So
Hmm.
I'm I'm really glad I didn't forget about him because I'm happy that he's on my list.
Yeah. That's a good pick. I mean, who doesn't love Steve Carell?
Yeah.
And is just he just has to be one of the funniest actors, right,
Oh
that's
yeah.
ever lived. He just any role he has is hilarious.
I bet if you're just hanging out with him too, he would probably be like his type of humor seems like if you were just hanging out with him, he would be just as funny because
Yeah.
he would be. I feel like a lot of the stuff that he does is somewhat improvised or somewhat
Hmm.
like he puts a spin on it or something like that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, for sure. It's a good pick. All right. Um, my 3 is Leonardo DiCaprio.
Okay, going pretty chalk with it.
So yeah, but he's just one, and it's really in the last year that I've watched a lot of movies that he's been in. Um, and he's just so good. He's one of the few actors I feel like, and there's a handful, and every guy on this list is like that, but it's just sort of if I see a movie that he's in, him being in it is enough that it's like, all right, it's probably worth checking out. And it's the range of, I mean, he's been around for so long too. So I think about like maybe the first movie that I watched that I can think of that he's in is Catch Me If You Can,
Yeah.
which is a really fun movie. Like I like that a lot. I don't know how old he is, but he's young, and it just feels like with time he's done so many roles. I mean, obviously he's incredibly famous at this point, considered
Mhm.
an incredible actor, but I just feel like it's well deserved. He's in a lot of my favorites. Inception, he's there, and he's just a key character. He's so good. In Django Unchained, as much as he's just awful, like a horrible, horrible sort of crazy villain, his performance is really, really good. And I think the amount that you just despise him after watching that movie is an accurate representation, like kind of a credit to him playing that role well, considering it's such a difficult movie with what they're tackling. But it's a unfortunately accurate representation of what a lot of people in that position at that time would have been like. And so I think it's that range of his performances in movies where you hate his character are amazing. Then in movies where you're kind of rooting for his character are so good. And then he's just been in so many different kinds of movies. It just feels like I feel like he's so versatile. And every movie I see, I'm always just like, that was an amazing performance. Even one like Shutter Island, his movie, it's solid. I kind of like I liked it, but didn't. I know some people think it's really amazing.
Mhm.
I was just kind of like, it's pretty good, but I felt like his portrayal in that movie was so good. And just that movie's one that kind of just gets you thinking. It's right, a psychological thriller, and so it's the range of performances that I've seen from him, and I can't think of a movie where I've watched him and not been just kind of amazed at how he performed. So I have him at 3. I know it's tough, but I felt like he just had to be on the list as I was moving names around, looking at stuff. I feel like he's got to be there.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to. He's probably like most people's number one, I would say, or go to if someone were to say, "Who do you think's the best actor?" It's probably him. Like obviously, how is he not pop in your head? There's always just been something. Maybe it is just because he's so famous about it for me, where I'm like, I think by the time that I had started watching movies that he was in, he had been kind of like built up in my head to
Mhm.
when I watched him, I was like, yeah, he's good, but I always noticed more like the other people for some, if
Mm.
that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's because I started watching him later as well, so I
Hmm.
had this built up idea in my mind. Um, but I don't know. I feel like he's just delivered and over delivered. Another movie, The Departed,
Hmm.
such a good movie, and his performance in that one is incredible. Another one that's different from other stuff he does. Um, so I know it's kind of a basic pick, mainstream pick, but I feel like he has the hype that he does for a reason, and so he deserves to be on the list.
Yeah,
So,
and I think that's where I went with more like I would agree. He probably is one of the most talented actors, maybe ever. Right?
mhm,
It could be said. Um, so that's where some of my personal like just for whatever reason liking an actor and being like, oh, I enjoy them came into
mhm,
play. Because if it was for me, if I was thinking just like best, I would definitely put him on there.
sure.
Um, yeah. Okay, so we got to go to my 4 now.
Mhm.
Um, and this is where it gets dicey. This is
Okay.
where I'm starting to look at the names on my list, and I'm
Yeah.
starting to think, do I maybe want to pull an audible here and make a switch?
I'll be honest. I've already made a switch with my list since we started talking.
No
So
way. Who was the switch? Oh,
it
you haven't
hasn't
said it yet, but he's made it
happened
on
yet.
the list. I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Um, and now this is where I'm trying to go into what have I seen them in?
hmm
What you know, what sticks out to me?
hmm
And I think I am going to make a switch at some point,
mm
but I don't think it's going to happen right here.
Okay.
And I'm going to go Bradley Cooper.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to
Are
go
you,
with
are,
Bradley Cooper.
are you bringing him onto the list or just moving him up?
He was there. He was there. I was second guessing if I wanted to put him here, if I wanted to jump someone over him,
Okay.
but I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go Bradley Cooper.
Okay.
Um, so with him, I will admit, part of it is when I watch him, I'm just like, wow, that's a cool guy.
Okay.
Um, and so there's something where I'm like, oh man, I admire. I wish I was like him. I wish I was like him. And so I'm like, yeah, that's a good performance. Good job.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do think he's really good. Hangover is a phenomenal trilogy, one of the funniest trilogies I've ever watched. Anytime any of those are on the TV, at least if I'm in a situation where I feel okay watching a movie like that, I'll throw it on. Absolutely, like no matter what part of the movie it's in, I'm throwing it on. But then I also watched this movie called Burnt, where he's a chef, and I thought he was super super good. It's a chef with like addiction issues and all kinds of different issues, who also wants to be like the best chef.
Hmm.
And I thought he was really good in that. I've loved him in some rom coms in the sense that, like we were saying, I think he does a good job being like a really hateable guy in Wedding Crashers. Um,
Yeah.
and then he's actually pretty hateable in a few different movies in the rom coms. He plays kind of like, the jerk, the hot
Yeah.
jerk, sort of whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but I think he's good in that role as well. And then this is kind of what got him on this list. His role as Rocket is
Oh.
unbelievable. Like to put, especially after Guardians 3, to
Hmm.
put the amount of emotion into a voiceover that he does. And if you see some of the behind the scenes clips, it's awesome to watch because he gets
Yeah.
so into it.
Yeah.
But the fact that for a while I didn't even know it was him.
I
And then
it,
I heard that it was him. And if I try really hard, sometimes I'm like, yeah, okay, that is a little Bradley Cooper coming out. But for the most part, even fully knowing that it's him and picturing him saying the lines, I don't connect it in my head.
yeah.
Um, and I think that's super impressive to be able to do, especially in a big movie, a big budget movie like that. It's not just like a cartoon or something. Um, so that's what really I liked him. And then when I thought about that, I'm like, yeah, he deserves a spot on this list.
That's a good point. Bradley Cooper's a name that like popped into my head, but I didn't really think about him for long. I haven't seen him in a ton of stuff. But
Yeah.
when I found out that he plays Rocket, it was one of the craziest things to me. And like you said, to this day, I just I don't hear it. I don't know how it's him.
Yeah.
And I can't think of another role like another voiceover like that.
Mhm.
Um, it's so it is a credit to him how crazy that is. Um,
Yeah. The knock on him would definitely be I haven't seen him in a ton of stuff.
mhm,
And at first that was going to keep him off the list was I
mhm,
couldn't think of a ton, but then I started thinking about like his side roles in rom-coms and stuff like that. I'm like, all right, yeah, I have seen him in enough to warrant him being on the list, but
mhm.
it's certainly not, the breadth that some of the other people that we've mentioned do have.
Sure.
Um, and that's partially on me because, like I should probably watch something like Shallow because that song is on my playlist and I've listened to it countless times, but I've
Yeah,
never gone and watched the movie. And that is, I think, a relatively different role for him.
sure. Have
So
you
I
seen
probably
Silver
should see that at some
Linings?
time. No, and that is on the list for
That's
sure.
one on my list. Yeah,
Um, that's one of those like at some point I'll get around to it, and I I'll see something about it, and then think, oh, I definitely need to make sure that's on my list, and I go and check, and it's been on there for months or years or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
But when I have the time, sometimes for some reason I just don't think about it.
yeah. I get it. It's a good
Yeah.
pick, though. It's a good pick. All
All
right,
right.
Bradley
So
Cooper for me.
you're four now.
So my four. So this is a last minute change here for me.
Okay.
Um, and the reason I wasn't going to put him on it first is because I've only ever seen him in two movies, but I've decided those two performances are enough to warrant me putting him on this list.
Okay.
And I will say it's early last summer is where something kind of switched in my mind where I really started to enjoy movies on a different level.
Oh,
I
okay.
just started to appreciate like filmmaking, appreciate the art of acting. I guess on a more deeper level, just like analyzing movies. And that's when I started ranking every movie I've seen since then. Um, in a way that before I was just kind of like I always loved movies, but it's just like, yeah, they're entertaining, they're entertaining. I didn't really think about it much deeper. But it was this movie, which we've already talked about, but his performance that really changed it for me. And so it's Django Unchained, the actor's Christoph Waltz.
Oh yeah, he's really good.
So the I just remember early on in this movie, I was with some friends, they put it on, I was on vacation, and I remember thinking, like, I don't really feel like watching this. I've heard it's like super violent, and I just at the
Mhm.
time I was just like, I'm just not really in the mood for this. But within the first like 5 to 10 minutes, his performance, and then Jamie Foxx is incredible too. But there was just something about watching these two characters that I was just like, this story is incredible. I just got sucked in. I was like, I just want to see what happens. And I can't think of another time where I've been kind of sucked into a movie the way I was with them. And it just the entire time was just like, I love this character. And then the other one is Inglorious Bastards, where he's completely switched, right? Then he's the villain, but he's just so good. And the way
Hmm.
the number of scenes in that movie where the just suspense is through the roof and you're on the edge of your seat, and it's so much it's just his performance, and he's this evil guy that's going around doing horrible things, right? With like as a Nazi. And he just always has you like freaking out, but is so calm and collected. The performance he has in that movie, I think those two performances, if I were to put a list of top 5 to 10 like individual actor movie performances, I think I'd have both of those on the top 10, maybe even both in the top 5. And so as much as I don't really know anything about him, haven't seen him in much, I just the amount that I enjoyed those two performances and the way he sucked me into Django Unchained and largely started me down this path where I'm enjoying like films
Hmm.
more than I had before.
Yeah, I mean, he's someone that a lot of people would like sing his praises, I feel like.
Have you seen either of
Um,
those movies?
well, no, I slept through Django Unchained, as we've
Right,
mentioned,
right.
but
Yeah. So,
I've seen him in. So I was just looking because I was trying to see if I've seen him, how much I've seen him in. I've seen him in 2 James Bond movies.
oh, I
Um,
forgot he was in.
apparently I've seen him in Downsizing. I don't remember him in. I don't really remember that movie that much. It was kind of a
Okay.
forgettable movie. The French Dispatch, and then Horrible Bosses, but I don't remember him in Horrible Bosses either.
Oh, yeah.
So he must have had like a smaller role in that one. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, I don't. I think he's really good in the James Bond movies I've seen. Um, obviously, that it's sort of similar to saying someone's really good in a Marvel movie or something. It's not as
Mhm.
much of a show off my
Sure,
acting
sure.
kind of performance, but I think he's really good.
Mhm.
And all the people that I've followed who talk about movies have said that he's one of the best there is. So
Yeah.
um, can't
I
fault it. Not super super familiar myself, but
sure.
obviously can't fault it.
Yeah. I forgot he was in James Bond.
Yeah.
I have only ever watched James Bond movies. The Daniel Craig ones are the only ones I've seen. I've only watched them on
Hmm.
planes, and
Yeah.
I haven't seen all of them through. And I remember the one he's in, I watched the first like 20 minutes of or something. So he makes his appearance, and then I stopped watching. I don't remember why. So, but I'm telling you, you got to watch Django Unchained and Inglourious
Yeah. I
Bastards.
will watch Django
They're,
at
I
some
mean,
point.
those are both probably in my like 10 to 15 range for
Hmm.
movies all the time. So,
Interesting. I
gotta
can't
check that
promise
out.
they'll get in there for me because it's pretty ironclad, that range,
I'm
but
just,
we'll
but
see. We'll
I'm
see.
just saying that's how good the movies are.
Yeah, I'll
So,
I'll definitely watch at some point. How
mhm.
long that will be, we don't know.
But you never
It
know.
could be years.
Like, someday you'll try to
um,
get there.
That's my
So decision
last
making time.
pick. I'm just gonna go super. Do I have enough to put this person in? Yeah, okay, he's in. 5, Benedict Cumberbatch.
Ooh.
Yeah, so obviously I love Sherlock. That's big for me,
Yeah.
right? That's a little bit of favoritism there. I also love Doctor Strange because I think he's super cool.
Yep.
If I were to get any Avenger power, it would be his. So that's cool as well. 1917, he was a nice surprise.
Hmm.
Spoiler alert. The Imitation Game,
Mm.
I love, and I think he's so good in that. And that's a significantly different character. And then, similar to Bradley Cooper, I forgot about this one, but it just sealed the deal for me. The Hobbit trilogy, him as Smaug is unbelievable, and the fact that he had to do the motion capture for that. So there are videos of him like crawling around like he's Smaug.
Really?
Yeah. So like when Smaug is crawling around on the cold and stuff, that's
Sure.
Benedict Cumberbatch doing that in a studio.
That's wild. I didn't know
Yeah.
that. That's it's
Yeah.
funny you say that because literally day or two ago, I was looking at like Lord of the Rings Hobbit online, and I saw him in the cast for the Hobbit. I was
Hmm.
like, I did not remember this.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So
He's
that's what I feel good about that. I was
yeah.
gonna I was gonna try to sneak him in there mostly because of Sherlock
Hey, I
and the
get it. That's all
Imitation
right.
Game because I really really love those projects. But yeah, I think he's a really really good actor. And I think he's at the point where if there were a new project released like next year and he was the star, it would be right near the top of my anticipated list.
He's a great pick. Imitation Game is one of those movies. I remember I watched it with I think 3 friends shortly before graduating college. It was late at night. I think one of them fell asleep, and the other two were just like did not care for it at all.
Hmm.
And I finished the movie and was like, that was incredible. Like that movie
Yeah.
was so good.
That
It's
was
nice.
one of those movies that sucked me in. I started
Yeah.
watching it and I was sort of like, and part of it was that uh, first, I don't remember what I thought it was, but it wasn't what it ended up being. And so I
Yeah.
started watching. I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. What do we have here?
Yeah. I didn't know much at all about it. I don't think I'd even heard of it.
Same,
But it's just one of those,
same.
we were like scrolling, let's watch a movie, read the description, and we're just like, okay, I guess let's throw it on. I think there's something kind of fun about that because it's that almost never happens where I watch a movie just because I'm scrolling and just like, I'll
Yeah.
throw it on. But it's such a good one. And it's validating to know that you thought it was good too. Because I was
Oh,
sitting
I
everyone around
love it.
everyone around me was just
It's near my top 10,
yeah, it
certainly.
it should be.
I the Imitation Game, when I got to the end of the movie and found out that it was a true story, I was mind blown.
Yeah.
I instantly went on Google and was like, wait a minute, hang on a second. I gotta
How's
figure
it
this thing
possible?
out. There's no way. I literally thought it was just a good war movie. And I was like, wow, that was really cool that someone came up with that. And it was
It
like,
was
this is based on, and they did, I don't remember if they say like based on a true story or if they basically just did like a
inspired by true
Alan
events.
Turing would go on to da da da. And I was like, wait a minute, hang on. They're going a little over the top here with this.
Yeah. Now they're faking like it was
Yeah.
real.
Like, okay, that's kind of funny, I guess. And then I looked up and like, oh, never mind.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Man, that's a good one. That's a great pick. I
Yeah.
love Benedict Cumberbatch. I mean, Sherlock alone
Yeah.
couldn't even be mad if that
Yeah.
was the reason. But
All right. Who
Benedict
rounds
Cumberbatch.
out your list?
All right, perhaps another more basic pick. I'm gonna go. There's like three names I want to say, but Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling gets number 5 for me.
I left them off because I knew you'd have
Yeah, there we go.
them.
Okay, this is another one. I don't and had never seen a movie with him until the last year, and in my head, I don't know why, but I think I, for some reason, had this perception that he was the type of celebrity that I just would not like just like diva.
Well,
Just
all the girls like him. So
yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what it is. Just but since I've started watching movies that he's in, he's just so good. He's just one of those guys that in almost all his movies, it's like this guy's just a beast. Like he's just a beast. I don't know what else to say. So I was thinking of all the movies that I've seen him in, but he's just another one where I see a movie if he's in it, it's like, all right, I want to go check that one out. And ironically, maybe two of his most famous ones at this point, the La La Land and The Notebook, I have never seen.
yeah, you gotta see La La Land is fantastic. It is
That's what
so good. And over like I loved it when I watched it, and over time I have admired it more and more and more. Like it's so brilliant. The
yeah.
Notebook, honestly, I think it's overrated.
I've been hearing that a lot. I don't
I
know.
don't think it's that great.
Okay.
Um, but if you want to watch that, go ahead and check it out. But certainly, like La
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 Land,
Land.
if you
Yeah.
have it's at the point where like if you have a free day, you should pencil that in to do not even just like oh, what do I want to like, oh, I guess I have some free time, I'll throw something on, but it's like a one of those like make a point to see it movies, you know?
All right.
Yeah.
Noted.
Yeah.
But he's just so good. I think about like Blade Runner 2049, which is not a movie that I love, but he's really good. Crazy Stupid Love. He's just such a funny,
Yeah.
just great character in that movie. Like him and Steve Carell too.
Oh yeah.
That's just such a lovable, I feel good movie. And even so, I don't know how well like this is generally, but the movie that he was in last summer, The Gray Man.
Hmm.
Have you seen it?
I have, yeah. I
I
liked it. I enjoyed it at least.
yeah, I really enjoyed that movie. Thought he was so good. And then The Nice Guys is the other
Yeah,
one.
Nice Guys is really, really good.
So good and just hilarious.
Yeah.
Like and the way he can go from in Nice Guys is just this hilarious character that's just a disaster. So then in The Gray Man, he's just like so stoic, no emotions, just a beast. And still like funny with his little one-liners, his quips. So
Hmm.
I just love Ryan Gosling so much. If he's in a movie, I want to see it. Movies that I've heard of from him that I haven't seen are already on my list. And then he's one that also just like you watch him in interviews, he's just hilarious. Just such a likable guy.
Yeah, he's been doing this thing in interviews lately where it's like he really, really does not want to be there. I've been watching a lot of the press
I
stuff
haven't
for
seen those.
Barbie, and it just seems like he's sitting there, and it's like he'll sit there with like a cup of coffee or tea or whatever, and it just looks like he's not really up for it.
That's
I
funny. I
don't
haven't
know if
seen
it's an
that.
intentional thing or not
Yeah,
intentional thing, or
yeah.
I don't know what's going on. Um, My one thing with him and what part of the reason I left him off, besides that I knew that you were going to have him, is so I think the exceptions to this would be Nice Guys, and then hopefully Ken in the Barbie movie. This is at least what I'm hoping to see tomorrow morning.
Mhm.
Besides that, I do kind of feel like he sort of just is playing a very similar character in a lot of movies because he is sort of like, you know, the cool guy. Like the reason that we like watching him is because he's like the cool guy, right? He's cool, he's suave, he's quick, he's witty, and I feel like he's like that in a lot of movies. And so it's sort of like, okay, are you like playing a character, or is this just like kind of what you do? You know what I mean?
Look, man, he's so
But hey,
good
if
at
it
it, though.
works,
You
it
know, so
works.
hey,
So
he's won me
I'm
over.
just saying that's the one hole you could poke there. I
Fair
also, I
enough.
mean, I texted you a while ago, like, oh, I love Ryan Gosling.
Who
So
doesn't?
I'm
Who
not
doesn't?
saying I'm not saying that's a problem I have with him. That's just a hole that if
Fair.
someone were to say that to me, I'd be like, yeah, I don't buy it. I don't think he's a good actor. Be like, I can understand why you say that, but he does have a couple outliers there.
Sure, sure.
I also saw him. You need to watch his interview for Barbie with Ali Plum, I think his name is, the BBC guy with like curly hair that all the actors love. They pulled a clip of Ryan Gosling on what I assume is like a Canadian TV show, like kids show basically, and
Hmm.
it's like it's nuts. Or look
Is
up
it when
like
he's
Ryan
dancing?
Gosling hamster or something. I
Oh,
think
okay.
it's
I'll
like
have to look it up.
crazy. It's one of the, like, I'm baffled that it's actually him.
Okay,
Um,
I'll have to check it out.
but I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
So, all right,
Real quick, who are your a couple of
okay.
the close but didn't make it?
Honorable mentions, and I'll keep it to the male still because just in case you want to do a
Yeah,
female one. Uh, okay, who did not make it? Matthew McConaughey.
same.
Uh, I like a lot of his movies, but I don't really necessarily know if I like him as an actor or if I just like listening to him talk because that is entirely possible. I listened to his entire audiobook and I generally did not think it was fantastic book, but I loved it because I just love hearing him talk. Like I think
Okay.
it's like a self-help book and I really think it's not something that people should like practice uh because it's a lot of like, hey, this worked out for me and so you should do it too. It's like, well, yeah, you're Matthew McConaughey. I'm not. um but I love listening to his voice. Okay, so McConaughey, Martin Freeman, again, Sherlock, uh, a Hobbit I thought he was good in, but
Mhm.
mostly I thought he was good as Watson. Andrew Garfield I think
Mhm.
is fantastic, but I've not seen enough of his
Mhm.
stuff to like be convinced of it.
I agree.
Uh, Jesse Eisenberg, I love so many of his movies,
Mm.
but I don't know if he's a good actor. I think he literally just shows up and is like, I'm Jesse Eisenberg. And that's like, I think he plays himself, quite
I don't know.
frankly.
Yeah,
Like even in interviews and stuff, that's how he is.
yeah.
um, but I
He's
love
so
again,
good though.
I love the movies that he's in. I
Yeah,
think maybe he's just cast really well.
yeah. Because
Um,
there is a lot of similarity between like him and Now You See Me, and then him even as Zuckerberg, and then him as
Lex
Lex
Luthor,
Luthor. It is,
they're all like
yeah,
the same guy.
yeah.
Um,
Shoot, he's good at it though.
yeah, like, I think because that's him. I think that's
Yeah,
literally
yeah,
because then when you watch interviews, it's the same. He even talks the same way.
yeah.
Um, Timothy Chalamet, I think he's the guy for our generation.
Mm.
Um, I think he's super talented. Another one where I need to see more movies
Mhm.
that he's in to really see like the depth of what he can do because I haven't
Mhm.
seen a lot of his more like artsy stuff. But
Sure.
I mean, I think in like 40 years, it's going to be like who's the best actor of our generation, and it's going to be him. So, and then shout out to a sleeper pick. This dude, Mike Faist, I think is his name, Faist. I've only seen him in one movie, but I thought he was insane. I think he's going to end up being a huge name someday because I think he's so good.
Okay. Yeah, never heard of
Yeah.
him. All right, some of mine. So Matt Damon was
Mhm.
on my list, and then I took him off. I just think he's incredible. Love
Yeah, he's good.
so many movies that he's in. I'm excited for him in Oppenheimer. Similar to that, Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, I was
Fantastic.
surprised he wasn't on yours, honestly, because of the
I
Nolan connection.
Yeah, I mean he's in like every Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't. I would love for him to be on the list. Feels like he deserves, but I
Mhm.
think these guys belong just above him. We'll stay with the Christopher Nolan trend. Michael Caine.
Yeah.
I love him so much. He's obviously in the Batmans. He's in
Yeah.
feels like every
You
Nolan movie somehow.
know what you should watch? The Italian Job. It's from I think like the 60s or 70s, but it's a young Michael Caine.
And it's
And I mean, I think it's good. I liked it, but also part of it is just it's so strange to see him. And it's
as yeah,
and as
young,
as a regular like young person, not like an old guy.
right.
And but he still talks the same. It's not so I had always assumed that the way he talked was partially because he was older. And so it was
Yeah.
kind of a little slower, a little drawn out, more like a little relaxed. But he
Mhm.
talks the exact same.
He, he's just so good. It's the same,
Yeah.
but it's so. I saw a movie with him from I don't know the 80s or 90s maybe. I don't remember what it was called, but I was like, yes, that's just Michael Caine. Like,
Yeah.
look, he's so good. And then McConaughey was also on my list, and one other. And this one, I think he's so good, but I just haven't really seen him enough, and so I couldn't put him on. But Denzel Washington,
Yeah.
he's from what I've seen, he's just really good. One of those guys that I just really like one of the most solid actors, it seems like, as far as watching interviews. But I haven't seen enough of him, and so that's why I couldn't really put him on because I'm trying to think. Like, I can't really think of movies that I've watched and been amazed at his performance. I've just kind of seen
Yeah.
stuff that was good, so that's why I don't think I can get him up there. But
Yeah. Somehow Denzel is like one of the most famous people ever, but I can only like I couldn't name that many movies that I would know him in.
yeah,
I don't know how that happens, but
yeah,
his son, I think his son, right?
hmm
John
yeah, yeah,
David, watch his name.
mhm,
He's awesome.
yeah.
He is so
He's so
good.
good as well.
I think I've only seen him in Tenet, maybe. I don't think I've seen anything else, but he is unbelievable in that movie. And
Yeah,
then he's coming. There's another one with him coming out not too long. I think this fall, maybe even. That the trailer looks incredible.
okay,
Um, it just released it recently. He's awesome.
yeah. Well, I think I've only seen him in Tenet as well, but
Yeah,
yeah, like he's great. I mean, some of the Denzel ones, he's in Remember the Titans.
yeah. That's the one obviously that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, he
But I
plays
couldn't name. I
he
mean,
plays
so
so
I
the
could name a few
Equalizer.
others. I could name a few others because there's a song called Denzel Washington that I've listened to plenty of times where they just basically list a ton of movies that he's in.
Okay, okay.
But if I were like, oh, what? I think I've only seen him in Remember the Titans. I
Yeah.
don't know if I've ever seen him in anything else.
Yeah, I think there's only one movie I've watched, and it was a while ago with my dad. Some older movie. I can't remember the title. But with him, it's a lot more of I've just seen so many clips.
Okay.
It's like, oh, I want to watch these movies. Like, I like this. He seems like a really good actor, but I haven't seen him enough, so that's why I couldn't put him on.
Yeah,
But
very fair.
yeah,
Jeremy Strong also is super good.
okay.
He was in so he was in Succession. That's like his big one, but he's also in The Big Short, which I thought was really good. Oh, that's another
Oh,
Ryan Gosling one actually.
yeah, I haven't
He's
seen
kind
that
of
one.
a little bit different.
Yeah,
He's sort of not too different, I guess, but
yeah.
um he's in that
The
one.
Jeremy Strong's in The Gentleman. That's a movie I really like. That
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, The Gentleman's really good. Is
really good.
there anyone from there? And Colin Farrell's awesome. Yeah, but Jeremy Strong is he's a really really good actor. He's kind of like crazy though. He in
Yeah.
Succession, there's a scene where he has to run in a suit, and so to prepare, he would go for runs wearing dress shoes, and then he like broke a foot or something doing like a stress. He got like a stress fracture from doing that.
That's funny. I mean,
He's like crazy, and he refuses to call it method acting too. Everyone around him is like, yeah, he's a method actor, and he's like, no, no, I'm not a method actor.
hey man,
Whatever.
some
He's really
people
good.
in denial.
He's
Yeah.
really really good.
I
Okay,
love this.
so let's run through them really quickly.
Okay.
Um, I have 1 through 5: Hugh Jackman, Christian Bale, Steve Carell, Bradley Cooper, Benedict Cumberbatch.
And my 1 through 5 is Christian Bale, John Krasinski, Leonardo DiCaprio, Christoph Waltz, and Ryan Gosling.
Cool. That was a good one.